take notes.
I know I take notes. I take notes because you want to know what we learned, no?
Well, yes, I mean, that's obviously. I also take notes because one day when I can't read or whatever, hopefully this thing can speak back to me all the things I've just learned.
The Eibush is going to give you gesund and health and happiness till coming Mashiach. So hopefully you should if you take notes just in order to be able to come to Mashiach so and say, look, I was learning Chassidus every day. Here are my notes.
It's got to be in my head, not my computer.
Okay. All right. So going to learn a Farbrengen that we gave on the 6th of Av, which is today, near Tafshin Lamed, 1970. The special virtue of the Shabbos Chazon that Hashem shows us, as we discussed yesterday, the third Beis Hamikdash. We don't find a similar concept in any other holiday. This virtue is analogous to the distinction Chassidus makes between two words, the words Echad and the words Yachid. What is Echad and Yachid? When we say Shema Yisrael, we say, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Now, the word one in Hebrew is similar to one in English in that one means only one, but the word one doesn't negate the possibility there being two. The word unique or Yachid in Hebrew, that word means that there can't be another one. When you say the word first, for example, first means there has to be a second one. The word one, day one of creation, could be there's only one day, or okay, day one would mean there's a day two, but one could mean that there's more than one. So when we say Shema Yisrael, we're talking about Hashem. So why don't we call Hashem the unique God? Why do we call him the one God? If we want to emphasize Hashem's, and this is not just a question in grammar, because the various words we use to describe Hashem represent, or the distinction in grammar between these two words represents different levels of the Hashem's truth. So if we're talking about a level of truth which could be mistaken as being more than two, that represents a level of godliness which is lower. And the level of godliness which is represented by the word unique represents a higher level. So why would we say Shema when we're talking about, a moment of the day we're trying to be true, trying to be real, and trying to carry us for the rest of the day, as we discussed on Sunday, the power of saying Shema. So why is it that we don't go all the way? And why don't we talk about Yachid? Specifically, Yachid refers to God's essence. The word Yachid, when we say Hashem is unique, it doesn't refer to one of Hashem's revelations, how Hashem reveals himself. Rather, it refers to God's essence. So we say, and that's why the word is unique. There's nothing else. All there is him. So the answer Chassidus gives is that although Yachid is higher than Echad, but nevertheless there's an advantage in Echad over Yachid. And that is the emphasis that we are giving by saying the words Echad, Hashem Echad, is that Hashem's truth is something which is also recognized from the perspective of the world. The word Echad has three letters. Aleph means the master of the world. Alufay, the master of the world. Ches is numerically equivalent to 8, the 7 heavens and the earth. And Dal is the 4 directions. And Aleph is the first letter of the word indicating that, and the first letter of the word permeates the whole word. So that emphasizes that the truth of Hashem is something that is in the 7 heavens, in the 4 directions. There's no space void of him. That in our experience, in our world, with our 4 directions, with our 7 heavens, Hashem's truth is here as well. And so what that means is like this. Although the word Yachid indicates God's essence, but it's not in a way that God's essence unites the world. The word Echad specifically emphasizes how God's essence unites with the world. And that's also the advantage of Shabbos Chazon compared to all other holidays, including Shavuos, which is the closest holiday back. It says in Torah Or that every time you have a holiday, the holiday continues, the light of the holiday continues which every holiday is about seeing Hashem. It says you should come to the Beis Hamikdash to see Hashem, to be seen by Hashem. So every holiday continues until the next holiday. The light of that holiday of Shavuos continues until Sukkot. So it's understood that Shabbos Chazon, it's getting its energy from the past holiday, the holiday when God gave us the Torah. So there's something about Shabbos Chazon which surpasses the holiday of Shavuos. When Hashem gave us the Torah, Hashem said, my soul, I wrote it and gave it. The word Anochi, the first word of the Ten Commandments, is an acronym for my soul, I wrote it and gave it. Hashem put his whole essence in the Torah. And it's not just Hashem put his essence in some Torah in heaven and Atzilus. In the Torah that we got in this world, which has physical letters, which are written on parchment, that is where God's essence is invested in. And yet, sure. But nevertheless, that's the way it is in Torah. Okay, so yes, we do have God's essence in those words. We have expression of God's essence, but that's the way God's essence is in His essence. It's God's essence is in the Torah, which we have, but it's not the way God's essence is seen from the perspective of the seven heavens and the four directions. So the holiday of Shavuos is more about the idea of Yachid. That wasn't mentioned in this talk, but Chassidus actually says that's the reason why Shavuos is in one holiday, is a one-day holiday, unlike other holidays. It's an expression of God's essence. So we're not talking on Shavuos about how God's truth permeates the seven heavens and the four directions. The word Echad is how the Aleph is when Alter says in Tanya in general that whenever you have a word, each letter contributes something. And then when the whole word, the letters join together to form a word, you have a higher light that encompasses the whole word. So the first letter of Echad is the beginning, and that permeates the word of Echad, the oneness of Hashem, as it's seen from the perspective of the world. So that's what you have on Shabbos Chazon, when Hashem shows us the third Beis Hamikdash. Because what's the point of Beis Hamikdash? King Solomon said, the heavens, the highest heavens cannot contain you. Can this house contain you? He said it seems on the surface as a question. When he inaugurated the Beis Hamikdash, he was saying like this doesn't make sense. It's amazing. It's an incredulous question. But Chassidus says it wasn't really a question, it's a statement. Imagine, the heavens can't contain you, yet the Beis Hamikdash can contain you. That means that we're talking about the way godliness, God's essence, becomes drawn and vested in the physicality of the world, in physical things, and stones and silver and gold. That's what made the Beis Hamikdash. That Beis Hamikdash is constructed from those items. So that's the advantage, the virtue of Echad. Going a little deeper, in the Beis Hamikdash, since I'm the first point that in the Beis Hamikdash you see in the Shabbos Chazon, Hashem shows us the Beis Hamikdash. We're not just seeing Hashem's truth in the world of Atzilus. We're not seeing Hashem's truth in His essence. We're seeing Hashem's truth through the Beis Hamikdash, which means how Hashem's truth is drawn into the world. In the Beis Hamikdash itself, yeah, makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, in the Beis Hamikdash itself, God's essence was also drawn into the inanimate. That's the advantage the Beis Hamikdash has that surpasses the Mishkan. In the Mishkan, godliness was drawn in the Mishkan was constructed in a way where you have animal hide on the top, wood on the sides, and inanimate on the bottom. So the major ingredient in the Mishkan was the vegetation, was the walls, was the wood. Only the floor was the inanimate. In the Beis Hamikdash, the main ingredient was the stones. The main ingredient was the earth, the inanimate, and that is connected with the idea of how when we serve Hashem in this world, that's the highest thing. That's what Beis Hamikdash is about. It's about our service of Hashem in the physical world, represented by the inanimate, the lowest thing being the major ingredient. And that also happened by the first and second Beis Hamikdash. In the third Beis Hamikdash, something new happens. That's the Mikdash. We're not showing the first and second Beis Hamikdash, which also were made out of inanimate. On this Shabbos, Hashem is going to show us the third Beis Hamikdash. What's unique about the third Beis Hamikdash is that it is called in the Zohar the building of God, and that's why it lasts forever. So although in the first and second Beis Hamikdash there was a revelation from Hashem, but the revelation that Hashem gave at that time was commensurate and had a relevance to whatever we could possibly reach here. It was limited to what we could possibly reach. The third Beis Hamikdash, there is going to be revelation that is not, as we learned about yesterday, actually you weren't here yesterday, the third Beis Hamikdash, we learned yesterday that the B'ditch Rebbe uses the expression Hashem shows us the third Beis Hamikdash. The emphasis of the word showing us means that it's not something that we could tap into with our senses and through our own experience. Hashem shows us something the way it really is, the way things really are. Not just the way we're able to handle it, but the way it really is. Hashem is showing us something, not just when you look at something, you see it from your vantage point. It is limited. Everyone has their limited vision. The idea of Hashem showing us the third Beis Hamikdash is that it's something which is infinite, and it's not something which we could draw down through our efforts. And that's the meaning of a pasuk about the coming of Mashiach. It says in Hosea, Hashem will give us life in 2 days, and on the third day, He will lift us up and we will live before Him. So what's the meaning of this passage? It's talking about the 2 days refer to the first and second Beis Hamikdash, and the third day refers to the third Beis Hamikdash. So unlike, and these three temples represent three different areas of God's revelation. There is, in general, in Kabbalah, there's the right side and the left side and the middle. And the right and left speak of or are a limited revelation of godliness, but the middle line in the spheres, it says that ascends to Keser, that reaches the infinite. So the third Beis Hamikdash is about the infinite. So it comes out that in the third Beis Hamikdash we have two extremes. On the one hand, we have the highest revelation, the infinite, the revelation, the inner dimension of God's crown. On the other hand, it goes down to the level of the inanimate. In general, parenthetical note, the Rebbe says, the inanimate is associated with the lowest sphere of Atzilus. Just like the inanimate is lowest in this world, so too it says that letters are compared to inanimate because letters, the only energy letters have is by what you invest in them. So in a similar way, the words that Hashem used to create the world emanate from the lowest sphere of Atzilus, level of Malchus. So letters, which are the source of creation, and the inanimate have something in common, both that they're both the lowest level. So the lowest level of God's speech is connected with Keser. That's the meaning of the pasuk, I am the first, I am the last, that Hashem's initial revelation in the highest revelation, the level of Keser, is connected to the lowest kind of godly revelation, the level of the letters, level of Malchus. So in the third Beis Hamikdash, we have the infinite revelation, and yet where is this infinite revelation? It's in the inanimate. It's analogous to the way Malchus is the lowest sphere, yet it emanates from the inner dimension of Keser. And that's what the third Beis Hamikdash is about, the inner dimension of God's crown. So all of this tells us how special this Shabbos is, even in comparison to the holiday of Shavuos, the holiday that Hashem gave us the Torah. And yet, there is something that this Shabbos receives from Shavuos, because, as we said before, the Alter Rebbe says every holiday, its light shines and continues until the next holiday. So even this great virtue of Shabbos Chazon is brought to us through the Torah. A similar concept. It says about Tshuva. Tshuva is higher than the Torah. How do we know Tshuva is higher than the Torah? Because if you mess up in Torah, how do you fix Torah up? You fix up Torah through Tshuva. But who told you how to do Tshuva? The Torah. So although Tshuva is higher than Torah, you only can know about Tshuva through Torah. So that means that everything is revealed through Torah. Even things which are beyond Torah are revealed to us through Torah. So in a similar way, Shavuos is less than, it's not as great as Shabbos Chazon. Shabbos Chazon has an advantage, as we just said, that it's echad, it's the way Hashem's revelation is from the perspective of creation. And that's an advantage that's higher than Shavuos. And yet there's something advantageous that something that we receive from Shavuos. Every holiday continues until the next holiday. We cannot have a Shabbos Chazain unless it comes from Shavuos. This means it's like this. Where we're going is like this. What's the point? The point is that when Hashem shows us the third Beis Hamikdash, what's the point of it? Its point is to arouse us to have a great yearning to want the third Beis Hamikdash. It's a similar concept to the name of this month. The custom is that we call this month Menachem, not just Menachem of, not just of, but people call this month Menachem, which Menachem means comfort. And why is there comfort in this month? It's because of the great yearning that we have to leave the Golus. That's what brings the comfort. So this is especially emphasized on the day of Tisha B'Av. But there's an advantage that the Shabbos Chazon has that's beyond Tisha B'Av. Shabbos Chazon blesses Tisha B'Av because you only see the third Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos Chazon, you don't see it on Tisha B'Av. So where do you have this great yearning for the third Beis Hamikdash? This great yearning that happens on Shabbos Chazon in a way more than Tisha B'Av. And this brings us to the third Beis Hamikdash, when we will see what we say every day in davening. We ask Hashem that our eyes should see your return to Zion and with Rachamim, in the third Beis Hamikdash, which be revealed to us and come from heaven. And as we discussed yesterday, in addition to it coming from heaven, there's a mitzvah to build the Beis Hamikdash. So how do we do that? That's by putting up the doors. Putting up the doors, Beis Hamikdash is considered equal to building the whole thing. So the doors that we're going to actually erect, they come from the second Beis Hamikdash. Those doors were, it says in the Torah, Tavu bar Shara, her gates were swallowed in the earth. They never were destroyed. So Mashiach will come, Hashem will give us back the gates and the third Beis Hamikdash. And we're going to put the doors up. Right? And on the third Beis Hamikdash, through Geula of Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'chesed Rachamim, and open and clear good. So that's the first talk of this Farbrengen. Actually, the second talk. The first talk was another Sikha that I think we learned a few years ago, Chelik Test. Anyways, so the point of the first talk is how this Shabbos is something incredible, greater than Shavuos. Hashem shows us not just revelation of Hashem, it shows us how the revelation is part of our experience, how the revelation is part of creation. It shows us the Beis Hamikdash. Not just it shows us godliness, but he shows us how godliness is in this world. That's the revelation is about. It's not just about Hashem showing you there's something otherworldly, something higher, something deeper. There's a third Beis Hamikdash. He's showing us the meaning of the third Beis Hamikdash is how the revelation of Hashem is in this world. That's the emphasis. And this revelation is meant to give us this yearning that we want to see this. Any questions before we go on to the next talk? Okay. Okay.
Questions for you.
All right. Okay, so when we say that on Shabbos Chazain, Hashem shows us a third Beis Hamikdash, it's not sufficient. It's understood. It's not sufficient to say that the essence of the soul sees this. Rather, Chabad demands that everything we learn about should be in our Chabad, in our understanding. It should lead to practicality. This teaching, actually, that Hashem shows us a third Beis Hamikdash, was revealed by the B'dishev Rebbe, who was a student of Mzisha Magid, but he also had a connection to Chabad Hasidus because he was very close with the Alter Rebbe. There were many who had complaints about the Alter Rebbe, and the B'dishev Rebbe actually said about the Alter Rebbe that we all ate from the same plate, but the Alter Rebbe got the smetana. He got the choice portion, meaning we all went from Mzisha Magid, but he got the choice portion. The reason he said that because everyone was saying the Alter Rebbe is a new thing, going to understanding, to logic. The Aaron of Karlin, Baruch HaMezhebush, they were against the Alter Rebbe. They said that logic is not a good thing, and intellect is not a good thing. Intellect is a bad thing. We shouldn't go into the intellect. But the Alter Rebbe, actually, the B'dishev Rebbe defended the Alter Rebbe and said that no, that this is the correct way to. This actually is the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. This is a way to teach the Baal Shem Tov that is being revealed in a greater way. And he was a big proponent for the Alter Rebbe's teaching, so he had a connection to the teachings of Chabad Chassidus. He shared this teaching. However, the teaching wasn't revealed until Hillel Parcher came along, and he is the one who publicized his teaching and printed it in his works. And the Hillel Parcher, but actually his yard said is next week on the 11th of Av, he was a Chassid Alter Rebbe, a Chassid Mittler Rebbe, and a Chassid Tzemach Tzedek. the Berditchever Rebbe actually adds and concludes that this idea, the depth of this idea, could be understood. Actually, I'm not sure that these are the words of the. I think these are the words of Hillel Parach, not the words of the Berditchever Rebbe. I'm not sure. The oimek, the depth of this idea, can be explained by a certain mimer of the Alter Rebbe, a teaching of Chassidus Chabad. So either whether that was a teaching of that's what those are the words of Hillel Parach or the Berditchever. Either way, this concept is something which is only can be explained through Chassidus Chabad. So this teaching has a relevance to this whole idea of bringing things down to understanding. And the point Rebbe is saying is, don't think it's enough just to say this is like one of those Hasidic concepts. Your soul sees the third base of English. No, this is something which has to come to your mind and come to practicality. Where does it have to go? Where are we going? What has to happen? So there is there are bichlach, there are books of stories that necessarily are they that Hasidim share. They wrote down stories that don't have the same authenticity as stories we've heard directly from our Rebbeim. But anyways, in one of these bichlach, one of these stories, it says that there was a brother of the Alter Rebbe whose name was Yehuda Leib, who lived in Yanovich. And he was the author of a book called She'eres Yehuda, a book of halachic responsa. He asked Alter Rebbe a question. He asked Alter Rebbe, why is it that Chassidus talks about such lofty ideas that have no connection to us? We'll never reach them. And the Rebbe says we could explain the question more. Not only is there no benefit of talking about these deep concepts, it seems like it brings damage, because it's better for people. It says in Gemara, it's better to do things by accident, do things on purpose. Better to make a mistake than to make an error on purpose. So if you don't know about these lofty things, so then if you don't do them, okay, it's just an accident. You don't know anything better. But those who now have learned these lofty concepts and they know how to reach those lofty concepts, but they're still not up to there. They're not up to doing that right now. So then they're now deliberately not doing these loftier services of Hashem. So it would seem that by knowing about all these lofty concepts in Chassidus, not only is it not beneficial, it's damaging. At first, I didn't know about these concepts, so you can't demand of me I should be on a higher level. But now you're incriminating me by teaching me these lofty concepts. It says that during davening, there are many different meanings in davening. So not everyone is capable of remembering all of these different levels of davening, and not everyone is capable of properly understanding these different meanings of the different meanings of davening. So it says in Hayom Yom, what do you do when you daven? There's all these different meanings in davening. You know what you should do? You should have in mind that I want my prayer to be heard. Ask Hashem, I want my prayer to be heard before you with all of the Kabbalistic meanings that are said in Kabbalah. Whatever it's said in Kabbalah, may be your will, that as if I had all these proper thoughts. So in that way, in that method that it says in Hayom Yom, it's great. You can't incriminate me for not knowing all different meanings. I am making this noble prayer to Hashem. I don't know any better, and I can't know. That's a great system. So it would seem, why tell? Just like about davening, we're satisfied with that. We don't have to learn all different meanings of the Arizal's explanations for davening. That's sufficient. So there's a similar teaching of the Rebbe's grandfather in Shara Koilo. He said that he writes in Shara Koilo that there are in various Sidurim, they printed our nusach, the nusach of the Alter Rebbe, the nusach HaTfilah, our text, the Alter Rebbe's text of how to daven. And in this text, they wrote down God's name according to the various Kabbalistic. They wrote down various ways of pronouncing God's names based upon Kabbalah. So the Rebbe's grandfather, Rabbi Ram Lavut, said, I heard from the Tzemach Tzedek, in the name of the Tzemach Tzedek, that he's not he doesn't like that they changed the way the Alter didn't put Hashem's name with all kinds of nekudis and comments and patachs. He just put it straight to Hashem's name. And the reason he did that is because the Alter wanted the Siddur to be something that's beneficial for those who cannot learn Kabbalah, don't know Kabbalah. He wants the Siddur to be for everybody. So that's what Tzemach Tzedek said. He was upset about them putting all those different nekudis in there. But everybody says, what's wrong? Those who know the deeper meaning, they'll have the benefit of having all those comments and patachs in there. And those who don't won't pay attention to those nekudis. They'll just think about the general meaning. And the answer is, the reason why this is considered a problem is because if it doesn't say it in the Siddur, so no one can say to you, hey, how come you didn't think about it? But if it's in the Siddur, so then there's already like, oh, well, you could have had kavanah. You do know better. You don't know better. So by placing the Siddur, you're incriminating everybody. How come you're not thinking about the deeper meaning, etc.? Without it being in the Siddur, it's equal for everybody. Those who know what it means will think about what the deeper meaning. Those who don't want to have the general kavanah, may Hashem consider it as if I had this kavanah. So, in the similar thing is the question of Rabbi Lev Yanovich. He's saying these lofty concepts have no benefit, and not only they have no benefit, it seems like they're the opposite of benefit. It's true, the Rebbe says, that when you learn these lofty concepts in Hasidus, the Maharil would agree that they're still Torah, and not just their Torah, they're the inner dimension of Torah. But learn other things that we could that we can benefit from, not things that will damage us. That's what he asked the Alter Rebbe. What did the Alter Rebbe answer? The Alter Rebbe answered, as Mashiach will come, Hashem will remove the heart of stone from you. Hashem says, I will remove your heart of stone. The word stone, who's the stoner? The Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is, one of his names is stone. He's the one who stops us from loving Hashem with all our heart. And the Alter Rebbe asked, how come it says Hashem will remove from us the heart of stone? Why doesn't it say Hashem will remove from us the mind of stone? Yetzer Hara is in the heart. Yetzer Hara is also in the brain. So the Alter Rebbe answered that Hashem wants us, even before Mashiach comes, to get rid of the mind of stone. How so? By learning Chassidus, in a way that makes sense to you. And so that you should become, your mind should be able to be a vessel for Hashem's truth. And that will bring us, the Mashiach will come, that there will no longer be a heart of stone. The opposite, that we will, Hashem will take our heart of stone away too. But the Alter is saying that there's a benefit of learning these lofty concepts and Chassidus. What's benefit? Benefit is that we will we could change something in ourselves. Hashem wants us to change. We're able, at least intellectually, to relate to these concepts. That is also a benefit there. So although I can't reach the level that I'm learning about in this mimer, I can intellectually connect to it. I can understand that brings me somewhere as well. From this understood also in regards to Shabbos Chazon. When Hashem shows us the Beis Hamikdash, it has to come to logic, it has to come to understanding. We have to think about by thinking about the different elements in the Beis Hamikdash. And we have to learn about it in a way that brings to our practical service of Hashem, in a way that our mind connects with it in a wondrous unity, so that it affects our feelings and our actions. And that's something that is explained in a Maimer of Chassidus Chabad, and Hillel Parsha explains it at length. The point that he says like this: where are we going? What are we supposed to know about the third Beis Hamikdash? So here's the point. There are three levels of serving Hashem. There's a level of serving Hashem like a child, like a son. Everyone could do that. There is a level of serving Hashem like a faithful servant. That's the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. But still, by the power of Moshe and the spark of Moshe and every Jew, that's something that's achievable as well. And then there is a way we're called, that the way Mashiach is called a servant of Hashem. It says about Mashiach, Mashiach is called Avdi David. Mashiach is called Hashem's servant, which is something even higher than Moshe Rabbeinu. So this is the advantage of the third Beis Hamikdash that will be revealed. Mashiach will come. When Mashiach will come, we're going to say to Hashem, thank you, Hashem, for being angry at me, because we're going to see how all the difficulties we had brought us to this beautiful moment. So the advantage of the third Beis Hamikdash is that the first Beis Hamikdash, we're like children of Hashem. The second Beis Hamikdash, we were like faithful servants of Hashem. And the third base of Mikdash will reach the level of being service of Hashem like Mashiach. So by thinking about all this, this purifies our mind, and this will bring us to the fulfillment of the prophecy. Or Hashem will remove the heart of stone from us. The coming Mashiach Tzedekenu, may he come and redeem us and lead us upright to a land Bekar Mamash.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Practical questions.